Hello, today I'm going to talk about REST APIs. To start off, we first need to understand what an API is. API stands for Application Programming Interface. It can be thought of as a messenger that takes your request and delivers it to the application you want to interact with. It handles the rules that dictate how you're allowed to interact with the application, just like your waiter could tell you that you can't order sushi at a McDonald's, because the application, or kitchen in this scenario, is not prepared to handle your request. We're going to focus on a specific type of API called REST API. REST stands for Representational State Transfer. Many websites such as Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, and Telegram want to allow programs to be able to interact with their web services in a way that they can still maintain control over. To better explain how REST APIs work, I'm going to use Telegram, which will be the main example used in the video demonstration. Telegram is a messaging service that has many useful features, but the main feature we are focusing on is their bot API. Their bot API lets other Telegram users interact with a bot as if they were just another person on their contacts list. To prevent spam, Telegram makes it so you have to establish contact with the bot first. Control of a bot is managed through the API system, letting, for example, a Java program to make a REST API call to make a bot perform certain functions such as send the user a message or a picture or even a file. To create a bot on Telegram, we first have to discuss API keys. API keys are a way for a web service to authenticate a program that is making a REST API call. This is to identify it and tie it to a real human user that was given the API key so that they know who to blame if the program starts to abuse the web service and use it outside the guidelines laid out. Many REST services available to the public have rules and guidelines on how to interact with their REST API. The most common being their rate limit. Rate limiting means they will only allow an application tied to a certain API key to make a set number of calls in a given time period. For example, Twitter's API only allows a user to make 15 calls every 15 minutes. This gives the server time to respond to all requests made and is used when the server is expected to handle huge spikes in the number of calls under certain circumstances. Usually, REST APIs have different rate limits to GET requests or POST requests. We're going to break down a URL example that calls my Telegram bot to send the message "Good morning" to my account by passing the parameters "Good morning" and the chat ID number of my Telegram chat. We also authenticate the call by sending it my API key. Where I have specified send message, all I'm doing is calling a function for the bot on their server and passing in parameters just like you would in a normal Java application. While in this specific instance, I am telling it to send message. The format to call functions in Telegram or other REST APIs is similar. The URL is similar to a normal web URL, but instead of returning a HTML page, it returns JSON. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It is a common and lightweight data interchange format. Most REST APIs use JSON to communicate as it standardizes communication between different applications and languages. Here is the JSON response I get back when I call that URL. It tells me that OK equals true, meaning that it was a success. It also tells me that I sent the text "Good morning" and gives me the date I sent the message. In the response, you can also see the message went from my bot, Java INFS2605 bot, to me, Arjun Sundram. As you can see, it sort of looks like an array within an array, or a collection of name-value pairs. Now we're going to talk about connecting to a URL in Java. We're going to need to import a few classes to help us pull this off, and the easiest way to get everything we need is to import java.net, which gives us all the classes we need to handle networking and opening connections with URLs. We're also going to import java.io, which will give us everything we need for input and output through data streams. This is going to help us read the JSON response we are expecting when we call the URL. Both these libraries make it much easier to handle networking in Java. Now, before we get started with the program, I feel like I should make it clear that all we are doing is the program equivalent of typing in a web address into the URL bar of a browser. You could actually just take the URL shown before, and if you copy-pasted it directly into Google Chrome, you would get the same result, and my Java chatbot would send me a message saying good morning. This is the main function that my demo program, that I show later, uses to connect to the Telegram URL. I'm going to go through it step by step. It's broken into 3 sections. The first part is making the connection. After that, we have to set it up to read the response. Then we need to print out the JSON response. So, we start off by creating a URL object. In this case, my URL is called hello URL, and we give it the same URL I showed before, except I've changed the text here to hello Arjun instead. The URL object comes from the java.net set of classes we imported earlier. Next, we create a URL connection by calling the URL object method openConnection for hello URL. This attempts to connect to the website, but in our case, it calls Telegram's REST API. This URL connection is given the variable name YC. The next step is creating a new input stream reader by calling the getInputStream method from our YC URL connection object. This gets the application ready to receive the response object back from the URL we just connected to. If this was a normal website, we would get back a HTML response, but since we are calling Telegram's REST API, we get a JSON response back. The final step basically says keep printing out every line of the response as long as in.readLine still has more lines. In our case, it's going to keep printing out lines of our JSON response until there's nothing left. This JSON response is going to tell us if our connection was a success. Finally, we close the input stream. So here is my Java application demo. I've created a GUI with JavaFX and attached the previous function to different buttons. At the top, I've added my import statements for the classes I need for my URL calls and JavaFX. I've sourced the Stack Overflow answer where I learned how to make URL calls in Java, and a comment right below the start of the function. The functions are mostly the same, with the send text being the only thing I really changed. The custom message button replaces the text to send with whatever I typed in the text field instead. So here's the app in action. I've opened up my Java GUI, and as you can see, there are all the buttons. Clicking on a certain button will call a specific URL. For example, the say hello button sending me hello Arjun, or the good morning button, which is going to send me good morning, and so on. The custom message button is going to send me whatever I input in the text box next to it. Numbers included. And here you can see the JSON response that comes back every time we call the URL. It's printed to the console.